Hey guys, my name's DocJade. Welcome to the 50,000 subscriber Q&A video. First off, I am super grateful for your support and have such an amazing community. Everywhere from the YouTube comment sections to Discord, you are all super nice, supportive, and most of you are pretty funny too. While I'm unable to reply to all of the comments I receive, I do read them all. So rest assured, if you have commented somewhere at some point, I have read it. While 50,000 subscribers is a really amazing milestone, there are also some other channel statistics that people don't talk about very often. So I'd like to show some of those before answering questions, since I think you might find them interesting. Since I started making Factorio videos, I've accumulated over 1.2 million hours of watch time, which is honestly a mind-boggling amount. That's over 140 years. Viewer age is skewed a bit higher than I was expecting. I'll tell you how old I am in a bit, but I'm honestly pretty surprised that most of you are in the 25 to 34 range. Most views come from computers at 56.8%, followed by phones, TVs, and tablets in that order. I have worried a bit that I don't put enough effort into mastering my videos for mobile devices, but I do try to zoom into important details as much as possible. If you have feedback on this, please let me know. And last but not least, at the very bottom of the operating system list, one of you is watching on a Wii, which I thought was pretty funny. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's get into the questions. I'll be going in the order that YouTube sorts them by default and merging similar questions. Where did you get your doctorate in Jadeology? I do not have a degree of any kind at the moment, but I am currently working on a bachelor's in software engineering. I've done a lot of programming for hobby projects over the years, and I've started noticing gaps in my knowledge. More than anything, I'm getting that degree to fill in those gaps. Have you ever had any interest in developing your own Factorio mod? Yes, I have, but it's a bit more nuanced than that. I enjoy playing Factorio multiplayer quite a bit, but the selection of hosted servers is quite slim. When you first open the list of servers, it looks like there would be a lot of options to try, but once you add filters to remove all of the private games and throw away the ones that nobody's logged in on, there aren't that many. And most of these are still private games that were left public. There are some standouts like the Comfy servers and Biter battles, but they can be quite inactive, and most of the time when you join a server, people have already been playing for quite a while. I've never liked joining ongoing games since it can be hard to tell what needs to be done and what's already in progress. So what I want to make is not necessarily mods, but scenarios for multiplayer, which are focused on being shorter, maybe an hour or two tops, while still being fresh and fun every time. I have a bunch of ideas that I won't go into too much detail about, but the best idea that I think I've had so far would be a mix between a tower defense game and a roguelike, where you would fight against an invading robot force that builds its own factories. The problem is, I'm not very good at graphics related stuff, and I don't have much experience with Factorio modding. So the ideas I do have would take a long time for me to implement, and that would take away time from editing videos. So the idea stays on the back burner pretty much permanently, and I'd need to also figure out how to properly set up my network to run servers for the scenarios, which honestly, networking security scares me, so I keep putting that off as well. Will you continue the K2SE series when you beat Space Age? Yes, K2SE will resume when the Space Age series ends, but I might reduce the pace on it a bit more. I'm considering doing alternating videos since there's a lot of new Space Age videos that I want to make, but I still have to finish K2SE. There's no way I could just leave K2SE hanging, especially since I know there are people who are waiting for the final movie version of the video, which will have proper subtitles. When will you play Pyanodons? I get asked this a lot, and unfortunately the answer is probably never. Unless I can get an editor to handle the insane footage workload of that while I work on other videos. The problem with Pyanodons is, well, it's a cool mod, and I really want to play it. It just boils down to the fact that I only have so much time on my hands. Yes, I could make a Pi video, or do it as an episodical, but in the same amount of time it would take me to finish that one mod pack, I could make so many more standalone videos, which I think would be more enjoyable for you and me, since variety is the spice of life. What inspired you to start making videos, and why do your bases look like that? Thank you, I'm glad you enjoy the video style. I always try to edit my videos to show the reality of playing the game, which is the reason I started making Factorio videos. I used to watch a lot of Factorio content on YouTube, and most of the videos I did see were just too cut and dry, going from point A to point B without stopping to smell the flowers, which I think is boring. In my opinion, the issues and complications you have with a Factorio playthrough is the best part of the game, and I think it's disingenuous to only show the good parts of your playthroughs. Like I said in the outro to the Gleba video, it scares new players off, since they play the game and start making mistakes that they've never seen before, which makes them think they aren't good enough to play the game. This does have the drawback of making me look like I'm not very good at the game, But I think it's more fun to consistently throw wrenches into my base designs on purpose, like making buses with no gaps, avoiding bot bases, and avoiding the obvious solution to a problem whenever the alternative would be more interesting or complicated. But by far, my favorite Factorio YouTuber has always been Michael Hendricks. I've been watching his videos since the Biter Island video came out in 2019, and his tightrope videos are still my favorite. I still remember the tree and Big John. Unfortunately, I haven't been keeping up to date with his recent stuff since I plan on playing Warptorio someday and I don't want to spoil myself. Also, Ryan Brown is pretty underrated, so go show him some love, even though he's British. The Factorio video scene has changed quite a bit since I started making videos, but the truth is, I don't watch that much Factorio content anymore, since I feel guilty watching it instead of editing it. How do you do spaghetti, and were you a Factorio player before becoming a software engineer, or vice versa? Spaghetti is pretty easy to force yourself to learn. Try making a gapless bus, and it will quickly devolve from there. The real trick is learning how to weave belts in and out, but honestly you just have to learn that with experience. Nowadays, I'll look at an already massively tangled setup, then smirk a little bit when I spot another way to force things through. Using spaghetti as a tool is good, so don't be afraid of it. But don't go completely overboard. You should still make some more easily expandable setups for things like circuits. And keep in mind that there's nothing stopping you from making tileable spaghetti. I play with a lot of spaghetti because I think it's more fun. The more puzzle in the game, the better. I don't remember exactly when I started to learn to program, but it was definitely a few years before I played Factorio for the first time. What mod would you like added to the base game? It's pretty hard to pick just one, but I would definitely enjoy some more circuit-related items. So I'll have to say FCPU. Not even for the assembly programming, but for a building that acts as memory that you could index into with one value and read and write from with another value. Since right now, when you need to keep track of several values, memory cells take up quite a bit of space. What planet has been the most frustrating, and why is it Gleba? It's not Gleba. I thought Gleba was the most fun by far. I wouldn't say any of the planets were frustrating. Sure, they might be complicated, but the balancing always felt fair to me. But if I had to pick one, I would have to say Navis, since you need to go back to it for the nice items like Biolabs and Productivity 3, which isn't frustrating per se, but I would rather be playing with the new mechanics on other planets. You've done a bunch of Factorio challenge runs. Which was your favorite to play, and which, if any, would you recommend for someone to play themselves? My favorite by far was the Factorissimo playthrough. I've actually done that run several times, twice before I made the video on it. I still have the save, but unfortunately the mods haven't been updated, so I can't show you more than just the thumbnail. As for what I would recommend playing, it depends on how much time you have. If you want something that's pretty short but still fun, Pneumatic Transport is pretty good. We have Vulcanus at home. If you have some more time on your hands, Science Pack Galore is a lot of fun. There's a few items that you'll have to mass produce that you've probably never automated before. Do you like playing Factorio with others? Do you plan on creating a collaboration with other Factorio YouTubers? If yes, when and who would you like to collaborate with? I do like playing Factorio with others. I don't do it as much as I used to, and it can be really tricky to find people to play with, especially when your playstyles clash, like in the tandem run I did with Code Green. I'm thinking 1 oil refinery.
You really?
No, I'm thinking 2. As for collaborations, do I have a plan? Not really. I'm not sure how I would structure a video with multiple people, but if the opportunity did arise, I would definitely try to work something out. And who would I collaborate with? No idea. Honestly, I'm really nervous to talk to the other creators, and if someone reached out to me, I'd probably take them up in a heartbeat. What got you into Factorio, and are the videos you make, along with other subscriptions, making you enough money to live off of, or do you have another job? I bought Factorio on July 31st of 2016, after watching the trailer on YouTube. It was the 4th game I ever bought on Steam. Then I proceeded to not play it for several years. Then one day in late 2018, I decided to try it, and was immediately blown away. But I was still quite young, so the game was pretty hard, and I don't know if I ever got past Blue Science. But what really got me hooked and kept me playing was my dad. We used to play Factorio together every Saturday. I laid on the floor with my ancient Dell laptop, and he would play on his Mac Mini. I remember there being a bunch of different saves we played on, including some light modding with Factorissimo, on a island preset save, but those saves had been lost to time. I did reach out to my dad though, and as luck would have it, Steam Cloud backed up one of our multiplayer saves. The save file he recovered was from 2019 on Factorio 0.16.51, and it had around 33 hours of gameplay. I took a look around, and man, most of these base design choices are questionable. Diagonal pipes, way too many tanks, and honestly a pretty average oil setup. But we did have a nuclear reactor to power everything. I'm not exactly sure who built what, since I would occasionally play solo on his computer while he was at work. but I'm pretty sure the disaster of a rail network is my fault. It looks like we made it up to bots and purple science, although the old recipe took electric engines instead of productivity modules, and it didn't have rails. My favorite part of this save is this music player I built, and I stole it from a YouTube video by Tritix989. My poor laptop could not keep up with it, so while I can play it at full speed nowadays, back then the music would have played at around quarter speed. The other save file from around that time was me playing solo. I only got up to green science, and I was doing ore sushi. Past Jade impresses yet again, but man, this setup is disgusting. Between YouTube AdSense and Ko-fi, I make around $10 per hour, but that's assuming I only work 40 hours a week, which I do not, so it's probably closer to around $5 or $6 an hour. I'm starting to lose my voice, we're not even that far into the video, this is great. I do not have another job, I work on YouTube videos full-time, usually all day every day, even on weekends, and it's not uncommon for me to have DaVinci Resolve open for more than 10 hours a day. YouTube's payout rates fluctuate wildly from video to video and even week to week, but an average performing video is the 12:9 video, which earns an average of $3.70 for every 1,000 views it gets. But some videos make quite a bit less, like the episodicals in the K2SE series, and some make more, like the Ribbon World video. I would say I make a livable amount, but the numbers fluctuate so heavily that one bad video release would make me fall uncomfortably short of how much I would need to rent an apartment month to month in my city. So for the time being, I live with family, and I put all of the earnings I don't spend on going to college and Baja Blast into savings. But I'm also not very financially responsible, unfortunately, so I have been putting money aside for a trip to southern Japan in next April, which will be my first time leaving the US. I'm 100% a workaholic, and I've been pulling 12-hour days pretty much every day since I got access to the beta to get those space age videos out as quickly as I could. So having something to look forward to is nice. Have you always wanted to make videos on YouTube? Yes, I've always wanted to make YouTube videos, but not necessarily Factorio ones. Back in my day, becoming a YouTuber was what every kid wanted to do, so me too. I wanted to be a YouTuber. I never really knew what else I wanted to do, so honestly, I just kept trying. And many years later, I'm starting to make it happen. What courses did you take to make your videos so good? None. I haven't taken a single class or course related to video editing. While I was in high school, I had a photography class and a graphic design class that gave me the full Adobe suite, so I started experimenting with making videos at around that time. I've always had the mindset that you can learn to do pretty much anything through trial and error and a lot of Googling. So I learned video production the same way I learned programming. Minimal material, maximum experimentation. What computer game did you play or own first? I have a hard time remembering which memories happened before and after other memories, but I think the first game I played to any major degree on my own was Club Penguin, which unfortunately was taken down a few years back. I still remember where I was when Club Penguin is killed. As far as my first ever experience with gaming as a whole, my parents used to play a lot of World of Warcraft, and I don't remember this, but according to my dad, when I was very little, I had issues with my guts growing faster than the rest of me, which made it really hard for me to sleep. So on those nights, my dad would sit me on his lap while he would play WoW and StarCraft. What I do remember playing is a lot of Field Runners on my dad's iPad, along with Jetpack Joyride, Bad Piggies, Where's My Water, and other games of that era. A bit later, and once I had started to learn how to bend computers to my will, I had an iMac G5, with which I would play Age of Empires 2, and I also did a lot of retro game emulation, usually Super Mario World. I still have the USB Super Nintendo controllers that I saved up for. When did you get started on YouTube, and what did you do before YouTube? A very long time ago, I made a few Minecraft videos at a friend's house that had zero editing, and as far as I can tell, I think they've been lost to time. I searched for a few hours to try to find the account they were uploaded to, but I couldn't find anything. I managed to track down the friend for the first time in several years, but he couldn't find anything either. So at least for the time being, I do not have those videos. The first video I ever uploaded to this channel was a Rainbow Six Siege clip in May of 2020, which was pulled from a Twitch stream I did. That stream had 0 viewers until I switched to playing Plants vs. Zombies, but I don't have footage of that. The first video with any actual semblance of editing is a compilation of duels I did on Hypixel that I play with my longtime internet friend Blair. At this point, I had started to nail down basic editing and how to do effects like zooming and overlays. Fast forward a Minecraft Dungeons multiplayer Let's Play that lasted 4 episodes, a bunch of random other meme videos, some Beat Saber, which I was very good at by the way. Top 2,000 in the US on Score Saber if I remember correctly. And about a year later, I started making Team Fortress 2 related videos, including some meme edits. My bread and butter was videos that showed the spots that you could trimp on as Demo Night. My favorite videos by far from that era were the frag compilations that I put together that were synced with music. It was around this time that my perfectionism on cuts being tweaked on a frame-by-frame basis started, which is still the part of editing that slows me down the most to this day. Then there was a 16-episode Minecraft Let's Play with similar levels of production quality. a Dark Souls video that never got a sequel because I couldn't progress any further, a FNAF video. Then finally, I reviewed the Baja Blast of summer 2022. Ooh. Come January 2023, I was growing unhappy with all the videos I had made, including a lot of YouTube short spam that I am not proud of. So I hit the worst gritty ever performed in an operating room, decided it was time to start over, and privated every video. 2 weeks later, I uploaded the first episode of the 1 Million Green Circuit series, which used to have some truly horrendous thumbnails. For your viewing pleasure, I have unlisted a few of these videos, which are linked in the description, including the entire Minecraft Let's Play. Before YouTube, I worked as an IT apprentice at a hospital. Can you say Fulgora in a Scottish accent? I'm already losing my voice, but I can try and it will really suck. What is Scottish? Scotland? Papa Bugalalum. Fulgora. I don't know. How do you plan out your bases for the longer and harder playthroughs? I don't. I will usually look a maximum of 1 research step away to maximize chaos. Usually, if you haven't seen a research on screen yet, I haven't seen it either. How long do you spend on the joke at the start of each video? It depends. Sometimes I think of what movie clip I want to use while I'm editing. Other times I'll finish the rest of the video and it'll be the last thing left to do. In those cases, I hold my head in my hands, covering my eyes, and sit there until I can come up with something. Which can take quite a while, but if you give your brain no other choice between being bored to tears or thinking of a stupid movie quote, the movie quote usually wins. How do you write the puns and rhymes? I don't have a preset list of puns or rhymes that I reference or memorize. I come up with each one on the fly while editing the video, writing the script, or very rarely while I'm playing the game. I'm not really sure how I gained the skill, but I think practice just makes perfect. Are you planning on revisiting any old videos with the new 2.0 improvements? I think about this quite a bit, but I think those videos hold up pretty well on their own. Well, maybe except the one train video. I didn't really have any idea how to use circuits yet, so that video was really just forcing me to sink or swim by learning them on the fly. It was also the first challenge run, so that overall video is a bit of a mess. With belt readers and setting assemblers with circuits, sushi is now more viable than ever. But I don't think I'll revisit the sushi video since playing it a second time wouldn't really add anything new of value. Even with the new circuits, I think the one assembler video is still more entertaining with the FCPU mod, since I get to narrate the assembly code, which made it have more entertainment values than just plugging in some wires. And a linear flow of logic is a lot easier for someone to understand than the race condition nightmare that is combinators. What type of music have you been liking recently? Any recommendations? I listen to quite a wide selection of music. I tend to favor bassy music, stuff with a lot of intricacies, or stanky slap bass. Usually without lyrics too, since they can be distracting while I'm trying to edit. My favorite genres are hard to pin down, since my taste shifts around a lot, and it doesn't really fit nicely in any buckets. But I do hate most country music. It's boring. For recommendations, here's some of my favorite artists in no particular order, but only the more niche ones I could think of. Infected Mushroom, Alfonso Peduto, Femtanol, Megan Echo, Carpenter Brut, Boa, Hideki Naganuma, Wayne Lytle, and unfortunately, some select video game music. Here's some snippets of my favorite songs from each. I don't even care if I get copyright striked, this video isn't monetized. As for more mainstream stuff, Queen, Talking Heads, Owl City, Panic at the Disco, Michael Jackson, Katy Perry, Tool, and Weird Al Yankovic. I don't know if this is a common thing, but I think I enjoy more abstract music due to its unpredictability in comparison to most popular music. I've never had any formal music training, but a lot of the time I can hear a song for the first time and quite reliably predict the chord changes or even the individual notes coming up in the melody. I usually enjoy the same core set of songs for about a year before I've completely memorized and internalized them to the point where they just don't do anything for me anymore. I used to listen to a lot of breakcore just to have some noise noise to drown everything out, but I ended up memorizing all of it, so I switched to early 2000s jungle instead. What kind of setup do you have? What are your PC specs? Before I upgraded computers in late April, I was playing on a custom-built machine with an i7-8700K, 48 gigs of RAM, and a 3060 Ti. Why 48 gigs? Well, I already had a 16 gig kit installed, and I decided I needed more for video editing. I wanted to put 64 gigs in, but I didn't have enough cash to get two 32 gig kits. Plus, I wouldn't have anywhere to put the old 16 gigs, so I just added one 32 gig kit and called it a day. The 3060 Ti also died on me, and I had to switch back to my old 1063 GB that I originally built the computer with 5 years ago. Luckily, you don't need that much GPU power for Factorio, but it really did slow down my editing. Combine that slowed down editing with the Sushi base not being able to run at full speed, I could finally justify that building a new computer was for work, and not for fun. What ensued was 3 days of research to check DDR5 memory timing compatibility, and researching the best price to performance components that I could get my hands on. But I threw that plan out of the window when Dr. Katz had a Ryzen 7 7800 X3D sitting around, which was one of the best CPUs you could get for Factorio at the time. So Katz sent me that in the mail, and with the money I saved from not buying a CPU, I went for an AMD Radeon 7900 XTX, which is completely overkill for everything I do, but I did want the extra VRAM for video editing and messing around with large language models. Intel also makes this great card, the A310, which you can pick up for dirt cheap if you just need to add a card to do AV1 video encoding, which is what I did. Sure, you could do the encoding on the XTX with minimal performance overhead, but according to what I had read online, Intel's AV1 implementation had superior image quality at the same bit rates. So I got one of those cards to put underneath the absolutely massive XTX card, which looks absolutely ridiculous. For storage, there's a 3TB editing SSD, which gets filled up with proxy footage several times per video, a 2TB Steam drive so I never have to uninstall any games, 3TB of spinning disks that I record the gameplay footage to, then the main 2TB SSD for the C drive. The finished build is called Nixon, since I was originally planning to run NixOS on it, but I couldn't get DaVinci Resolve Studio to cooperate, so I had to go back to Windows 11. The old PC is now named Lux, after the Lux Foundation in Doctor Who that built the library with every book ever written. It now runs TrueNAS Scale and does my backups. 4 12TB drives with 1 disk for redundancy. Although I do want to switch to Proxmox pretty soon. I'm starting to hate TrueNAS. It also used to run my Discord bot named DocJade, but he has since been relocated to a Steam Link since I thought that was funnier. How did you start off with circuits? I can only do a little bit and I have a hard time wrapping my brain around it. If programming is trying to teach a toddler how to make a sandwich, circuits are like trying to teach a toddler how to make a sandwich from scratch, including the entire universe. Jokes aside, the most important tool for making circuits is to build little circuits that do specific functions, then linking those together to build bigger circuits. Instead of trying to design an automatic crafting system from scratch, you should break it down into smaller steps, like designing how to set the recipe on the assembler, then designing a way to validate the ingredients. Start as low as you can. Do you need to save a value for later? Design a memory cell, and make sure you understand it completely before you try using it in something else. This doesn't usually yield very compact or optimized designs, but it is better to have something that works than nothing at all. The Automall is a prime example of this. It's basically a bunch of random circuits that are glued together with some final logics to check everything. I'm guessing that you know Tokipona. If so, what would you say is a good way to learn it? Also, are you going to be megabasing in Space Age? Some context for those of you who don't know what Tokipona is. Tokipona is a constructed language, meaning it was designed from the ground up by a person instead of evolving naturally like English, Spanish, Russian, and so on. What separates Tokipona from other conlangs like Esperanto is its tiny vocabulary. There's a core set of a little over 120 words that every speaker knows, and anything above that is considered a nimisin, or new word, which not everyone will understand, so those core words are practically the entire dictionary. It's also one of the available translations of Minecraft. Anyways, with that out of the way, don't take this as the best way to learn Tokipona, this is just how I did it, which probably won't suit most learners. I started learning Tokipona in October of last year, by sitting down with flashcards and memorizing all of the core words until I had their meanings drilled completely into my skull. After that, I started looking at online resources to learn the grammar. A popular one is Lipu Sonapona, which goes over pretty much everything. I made a few online friends that I practice with, and I also listened to the Kalamasin podcast to improve my listening abilities. This is where my learning goes off the rails, so you probably won't be able to follow in my footsteps, but I still want to tell the story. My Tokipona was still pretty rusty into several months of learning, but as luck would have it, there was a planned meetup of speakers in Chicago in June of this year, which I got invited to. So completely disregarding the fact that I was about to fly into a city I didn't know, with a bunch of strangers, and be required to speak a language that I barely knew, I bought the cheapest ticket I could, hopped on that flight, put my tray table up, kept my seat back in the upright position until I landed a day early to meet up with the online friend and get my bearings. Now, I had never been to a city quite as big as Chicago, so it was pretty daunting with so many people everywhere. But we meet up, and they bring along the person who is coordinating the entire event. And we have lunch as I try not to throw up from heat stroke. I can handle high temperatures, but I wasn't used to the humidity. Anyways, while eating the best sandwich I have ever had in my entire life, I slowly started to realize that my Tokipona was a lot rustier than I was anticipating. Since the information density in spoken Tokipona can be quite low, to have a conversation at a reasonable pace, you need to talk quite quickly. But I wasn't used to that, so it took every ounce of focus to listen and translate the conversation I was having with the two Tokiponists, let alone the next day with over 20 people. But to get back to the point, on the third day of the meetup, my brain just stopped translating everything back into English for me, and I was suddenly able to think and speak in Tokipona without any on-the-fly translation, which was truly the most surreal experience that I have ever had. It was super weird. I wouldn't say that I'm fluent, but I would reckon myself as a pretty advanced speaker at this point, except for sometimes when I forget grammar rules. Side note, while I was in Chicago, I was asked if I wanted to participate in an episode of Kalamasin, and I did, but that episode still hasn't come out, and I'm not sure what's taking it so long. As for megabasing, probably not. I'd rather move on to more videos. There's a couple questions that were asked in Tokipona, so I'll be answering those in Tokipona as well, but I'll burn in subtitles. Musi patolio li seme. Musi patolio li ni, musi li wile ni sinapali wasumun la sinapana e ona tawasewi. Open la sinayo e io ala. Lon ma la sinikankama yo e mani. Sinakan ante e ona tawa io sin. Io sin li kampali kepiken yan ala. Kin la sinikampali e poki pi kamasona. Kepiken poki pi kamasona la sinikan kamasona e io sin mute. Io ni li nasin sin pi tawa io, li tomo pi ante telo, li ken io ante mute. Sina kamasona e io mute la sinakampali e wasomun. Sinapana e wasumun tawa mun la musi li pini. Taso sinawile la sinikan awan musi lan ma sama. Do you have a favorite fluid or gas from Space Age? Definitely molten iron. Being able to craft steel quickly and easily is a game changer. What do you like the most and what do you hate the most about being a Factorio YouTuber? I love doing challenge runs and chatting with people on Discord, and I would say recording and editing the voiceover audio for my videos is my least favorite part. But even more than that, I hate not being able to make more videos. I have more ideas written down than I could possibly cover in the next 4 years. Are you going to attempt some challenge bases on the new planets? I plan on doing a run where I launch a rocket off of every planet from scratch with the Any Planet Start mod. Which is your favorite toe? I guess my hallux on my right foot. What's your opinion on chickens? As live animals, they're pretty cool, but they're even better in a spicy breaded chicken sandwich. What would you want to improve or change about Space Age? Factorio has always had a tutorial problem. Especially during the beta, there was a lot of missing or unclear info in the tips and tricks, but they've added and improved a lot since then. I think a tip that would tell and show you the asteroids that you will encounter on your way to the planet that you just researched would be very helpful for new players. I know this information is already in the Factoriopedia under the trips between planets buttons or icons or whatever they're called, but those are just graphs. They don't give you any real sense of what the asteroids are going to be like. It would be nice to have, some visuals to let people see, the expected amount of asteroids. Let them see a turret shooting an asteroid with yellow ammo so they can go, oh, that takes a lot more ammo than I thought it would. Stuff like that. That would be nice. If you were forced against your will to do one thing for the rest of eternity, what would be that thing? Being forced to do it for eternity implies immortality, which is not something anyone would want, so I would choose being dead. I love the little editing tidbits you put into videos. What inspired you to try these? Those visual gags are added when I get bored while editing, since putting clips together for hours and hours on end starts to get pretty tedious. I'll also put them in when I don't have enough relevant footage for whatever I'm talking about, just to stretch out the clips for a bit longer. Some of the gags take quite a while to make since I usually have to learn new editing techniques. A great example of this is in episode 7 of K2SE, where the hand grabs the settings window of the delivery cannon. My philosophy when editing and scripting is that if I think it would be funny, I'll try to put it in the video. What do you like about Factorio so much, and what is your opinion on the DLC in comparison to mods? What I think makes Factorio such a good game is it's a sandbox and puzzle game at the same time, and that freedom makes it infinitely replayable. Comparing Space Age to other mods isn't quite fair, since the production quality and time spent on Space Age is quite a lot higher than most other mods, and a lot of stuff it added wasn't even possible to do with modding before the 2.0 update. So for the moment, I think Space Age will sit above all of the overhaul mods for quite a while, up until modders learn to bend the new engine features to their will. How do you keep the motivation for your videos, and how can I get the motivation for video editing? At this point, the biggest motivator for me is knowing that there are people waiting for the next video to come out, and knowing the effort I put into each video is well received. Despite that though, sometimes it really does feel like I'm just crawling over the finish line to get a video done, but seeing the comments on the new video after I release it usually perks me right back up. But when I was just starting out on YouTube, I only made videos for fun. So if you aren't having fun, you might want to hold off on making that video or only do a little bit of work on it at a time. You also said you don't think anyone will watch your video, and statistically, you are probably right. Chances are nobody will watch that first video, but what's more important than the video itself is the experience you got from making that video, since you'll be able to make your next video better and probably faster. Those early videos will also really help you find your unique video style. For your first video, do not focus on perfection. You need to make something. Focus on getting the video out. It does not need to be perfect. It does not even need to be good, right? It just needs to be done so you can look at it and say, I made this, right? And you made this. You can look at it and go, damn, this part really sucks, or I forgot to edit this part in a way that I like. And you can look at that and you've learned. There's something new that you can do in your next video, right? You should be focusing more on self-improvement on those videos than actually getting views. Views will come with time. What you need to do right now is practice. So get started. What does your day look like while filming? Do you wake up and go straight to record Factorio till you go to sleep, or what do you do? Pretty much spot on. I just wake up and hop right in. Sometimes my recording sessions are longer than 14 hours, then I collapse and go to bed. Rinse and repeat for a few days until everything for the video has been recorded. In your opinion, what is the best way to spark enjoyment in Factorio? I'm kind of struggling to pick up the game more and more nowadays, but I do want to get to the point of, it's liquid meth that everyone talks about. Factorio burnout is real, and honestly the best advice I can give you is to play something else. Seriously, play something else until you start craving the game again. There's no reason to force yourself to play a game that you aren't enjoying, and forcing yourself to play it will just make you enjoy it even less. And if you're just getting bored with the base game, go try Crastorio 2. Can we someday have a collab between present DocJade and past DocJade? I actually have an idea for a video with this exact premise that involves time travel, but the idea is so experimental to the point that I'm not sure if it would be worth spending time to figure out how to record it, instead of just making other videos. What moment in any of your videos was the most difficult/challenging to overcome mentally? The sushi video. Not for the reason you're thinking. The base itself was fine, and the gameplay wasn't annoying. The hardest part was giving up. I was super disappointed that I didn't hit my original goal of 200 SPM, but continuing the run wouldn't have added anything to the video, so I just had to throw in the towel. Why did you name your channel DocJade? And do you have any connection with the Jade Stone? There were several contender names that I had bounced around, like Jade Spade, which I'm really glad I didn't go with that one. Then my friend Blair suggested Dr. Jade, which I shortened to DocJade on April 27th, 2020. The doctor part of the name comes from this stock image of a doctor that I used to use as my Discord profile picture back in 2019. The Jade comes from my name, Jaden, which comes from the rock Jade. Full circle. What percentage of time spent to make a video is editing? I would say about 90%. For the Gleba video, I did 5 recording days, then almost a solid month of editing, scripting, and voiceover work. I was already working on the Gleba video before the Fulgora video even got published. Other videos have been a bit more reasonable, but actually playing the game is always the minority of production time. Are there any other games you would like to play or explore for the channel? And what draws you to Factorio over other automation games? I've thought about it, and I've done a few polls in the past to see if people would want that, and the response I get is always positive. But honestly, I just don't know what other game I would make videos on, since I don't have the same level of mastery in any other game I play. I've been holding off on playing Elden Ring ever since I bought the game on release day, and I've considered streaming it a few times, but I really sucked at Dark Souls 1 Remastered, so I'm too nervous to even try. As for other factory games, I have tried. Satisfactory, Novalands, Mindustry, Shapes 1, Shapes 2, Rudy 2D, Foundry, Infinifactory, Forge Industry, The Crust, Revive and Prosper, and probably more than I'm forgetting. But none of them were able to hold my attention span or felt as good to play as Factorio. Satisfactory is really popular, so it might be weird to hear that I don't like it, but I think it's just because it's in 3D. And I don't think factory games benefit from a third dimension, it just makes them harder to play. This is also why I liked Shapes 1, but not Shapes 2. What are your future plans for the channel? I'm really starting to lose my voice, so I'm sorry about the unenthusiasm at this point. It hurts. I would really like to make those server scenario ideas I have, and set up dedicated Factorio server hosting for those scenarios. But at the same time, I want people to be able to use the spare CPU time on those servers to host their own private sessions. The goal is to have a cluster of random computers that I can pick up for dirt cheap on eBay, then write some software to move instances of the game between different servers depending on server load. So I can use the most power efficient computers during low load, and then spin up the more power hungry machines only when they're needed. But the upfront complexity of setting that up, plus the cost of all the hardware I'd need, is pretty daunting, so I don't know if I'll ever get the chance. I also want to make a video where I compare cheap computers to see what can run Factorio the best at a decent price, since not everyone has $2,000 to spend on a gaming rig. And I know what it's like to grow up with a computer that can't play the games you want to play. I already have a decently large list of single board computers that I'd like to see if I can get demo units for to test out and benchmark the game against, along with some recommendations for used machines. The viability of that video really depends on if I'm able to get loaner units from manufacturers to benchmark with, since I want to cover a lot of options, but it would cost hundreds of dollars for me to buy everything outright. As for overall plans, I do want to see if I can work with an editor sometime next year, but my strict editing style, plus the fact that all of my videos are scripted after editing, might pose a challenge. How do you come up with challenge ideas? I don't think I've come up with a single challenge run this year, because last year I sat down and wrote a list of over 100 challenge ideas that I've just been working my way through. The easiest way to come up with a challenge idea is to look at something you constantly do in your base, like a real core mechanic, right? Then try to put a spin on it, turn the concept on its head, or purposefully shoot yourself in the foot, leg, arm, or hand. Besides Factorio, what other games do you play, and what is your favorite game? My top 10 games in order are Factorio, Team Fortress 2, Garry's Mod, Beat Saber, Hitman 2, Celeste, Rec Room, Portal 2, Terraria, and Subnautica. Although the hours are skewed very heavily upwards, most of the other games on my account have between 8 to 40 hours. I feel guilty whenever I play games instead of working, so I don't play much in my spare time anymore. I would play more Dwarf Fortress if I had time, and I've also been working my way through the Yakuza series. I'm currently on Like a Dragon, the man who erased his name, but I'm not enjoying it nearly as much as the previous games. The best game in the series by far is Yakuza 6. And the ending definitely didn't make me cry. As for favorites, my top time all favorite, excluding Factorio, is definitely Plague Inc. I used to play it on my tablet all the time when I was younger, and I didn't have it on Steam until I think either last year or this year. Plague Inc is pretty old though, so for a more recent game, I think the best game that's come out in the last 2 years is Balatro. I don't know how to pronounce it, Balatro. But it's scary addictive. Any tips for someone who wants to start a Factorio YouTube channel? Have realistic expectations with channel growth. It might take a long time to hit that first 1,000 subscribers. When I was making TF2 videos, it took me 2 years. And as I said earlier, even if your videos perform poorly, at least you're getting experience. If you're really serious about it, you need to be consistent. You can't just make, 1 or 2 videos and go, oh, these didn't do well, I'm gonna give up. No, you gotta be consistent. It's gonna take a while. Just keep at it. But most importantly of all, you should be having fun. If you're not having fun, don't force yourself to do it. Make what you want to make, not what you think that other people want you to make. Would you rather have 5 thumbs or 5 pinkies? It depends on how the thumbs would be spaced out, but assuming the fingers all remain in the same places, I'd say pinkies. Same with toe equivalent. Why are we talking about feet? I might want a running blade prosthetic at that point, since a lot of your balance just depends on how your toes spread out. What is your profile picture? On the same day I settled on the channel name, I needed some branding elements, but I really didn't want to use a picture of me, so I literally googled logo generator and made something that I liked, but then the website wouldn't let me export it without paying. And I didn't have a vector editor like Adobe Illustrator, but what I did have was a lot of experience with Blender. So I just modeled a similar design in Blender, cranked up the sample count, and used that. Looking around, I wasn't able to find the website I used, but I was able to find a few examples of the base elements that I had copied, like this logo for Ferox Buster. Have you played Bloons Tower Defense 6? No, and my only knowledge of that game is there was a kid in my computer lab that would play it all day, every day, and he smelled like wet cheese. What Factorio challenge was the most difficult? Maintaining a healthy sleep schedule. Other than that, probably too many science. The immense scale became quite challenging to deal with and to edit. Have you considered doing a video summarizing the base game changes in 2.0 at a high level? I have not considered it, and I probably will not make a video like that. I think a video like that would be better suited for Trupin or Galdoc. In fact, Galdoc already has a few videos showcasing some of the new features in Space Age, but they might be a little bit too in-depth for what you're looking for. What would you recommend to someone with very poor blueprint organization? People organize blueprints? I just chuck them into blueprint storage and call it a day. What would you say if I told you I only think you need to build lane balancers for every power of 2? Lane balancers are cool and all, but most of the time you can get away with just using priority splitters, but I do agree that powers of 2 are the best sizes for belts. How many labs do you typically build for research? I build as many labs as my early science can keep up with. Then I battle for the rest of the run to try and supply the later sciences at the same speed to keep them fed. I only upgrade the labs if I know I have more production than consumption. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? As much wood as a woodchuck could chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood. Do you like cheese? Depends. I usually do like it, but only in small amounts, and I rarely eat it by itself. Also, those videos of people drowning hamburgers and stuff in cheese looks terrible to me. I would never eat something like that. How many pints can you slam back in a row? 0. How old are you? I am 20 as of today, and I turned 21 in March. What is your favorite food? As of late, probably a good gyro, but I will always be down for a margarita pizza or some Mexican food. Are you taken? Ala. Nimimi lian take. Taken ala. What is your favorite color? Blue by far. I wear blue pants, use a blue phone, drink water from a blue bottle from lttstore.com, and your mother also blew me last night. Do you like Gleba? I do like Gleba. It's the best planet. Can you go into detail on how the automall works? I plan on making a new automall design since I don't really like how uncompact the current design is, even if I did manage to squeeze it a bit tighter in the second revision. When I make that blueprint, I also plan on recording a behind the scenes video for the design process. How much caffeine on average goes into every minute of video produced? Before I got prescribed my ADHD medication, I would definitely say at least 25 milligrams. I've managed to almost completely kick my energy drink addiction, but weirdly enough, I still do quite enjoy the taste of plain Rockstar, so I still occasionally buy one. Or two. What's your favorite thing in the Space Age update? All of the various quality of life changes, and the overall improved circuit network. What is the next big video after Space Age is done? Next big video. I plan on doing an everything spoils run, but at the same time I really need to finish K2SE as soon as possible. Can you think of a word that rhymes with Factorio? Tutorial. When was the last time you went outside? And do you have the blinds open when you're editing? I usually do have my blinds open when I'm editing, but I do make a point of going outside at least once a day, since I have noticed it markedly improves my mood. Quite often I'll go for a short morning walk, but it's getting pretty cold out, so I'm not sure how much longer I can keep that up. What is your favorite color of belt? Red belts by far. They've always been a sensible upgrade since they double the throughput of the yellow belts you're replacing. I would almost always stick to just using red belts since the jump between red and blue isn't nearly as drastic. However, now that we have green belts, I have started using those as well, since they are another doubling above red belts. But in almost every situation, red belts are my go-to. What motivated you to learn circuits in Factorio? I had toyed with them minimally before the One Wagon video, but I never really saw a point in learning the more complicated circuit setups. I think it was around the Crastorio series when I started experimenting with them more in a test world. In fact, the first revision of the One Assembler video wasn't going to use the FCPU mod, but unfortunately I had forgotten how my design worked by the time I was ready to make the video. I am very glad I took the time to learn them though, since they have been pretty much essential for making good space platform designs. Although, the new multiple conditions and wire selection on the new combinators makes most circuits a lot easier. How do you keep your sanity while playing these challenge runs? I don't need to. This might come as a surprise, but I enjoy playing all of my challenge runs. I really like having to scratch my head and constantly approach things from new angles, so the challenge runs let me do that. Or maybe I'm already insane. How many Concerta do you snort a day? 54 milligrams every morning with breakfast. How many Steam games do you own? Around 260. I used to have a really bad habit of buying any game that I thought looked cool when it went on sale. Well, the habit never really went away, I just ran out of cool games to buy. Favorite Minecraft mod? Just the performance mods, and maybe a couple slight tweaks like that one mod that adds better audio. I'm not a fan of new content mods, and doubly so for mod packs. Mod packs, historically, I don't know if they've gotten better, never had tutorials, or the tutorials they did have really sucked. So when you tell me, can you play GregTech? I'm not gonna play GregTech, because the only way to know how to play GregTech is to have been in the GregTech community for the last 200 years. What is your biggest regret, Factorio or otherwise? My biggest regret is that I forced myself to be an introvert. When I was little, I managed to convince myself that I didn't need friends, which ended up crippling my social skills. It's taken a lot of effort to learn how to talk to people as an adult. To this day, I'd still label myself as an introvert, but I'm pretty much a completely different person than I was just 5 years ago. As for Factorio regrets, definitely the barreled fluids in the sushi video. Show us the wheel. I'm assuming you're talking about my one wheel, so here it is. It's a little dirty at the moment, so sorry about that. This is Wheelium, a one-wheel pint with over 2,700 miles on it. Last year, I got an amazing deal on a used Mini Cooper, which was by far my favorite car that I have ever driven. But a few months later, I casually discovered why the deal was so good when the engine practically exploded on the freeway. Carless, I needed a way to get around while I was looking for a new car, and I had already been eyeing up one wheels for a while, so I decided to get one. Learning how to ride it took a few days, but after a week or so, I was comfortable enough to get coffee and drink it while riding around. After a few months of riding it, I honestly just didn't see the point in getting a new car, since everywhere I wanted to go was within its range. To this day, it's still my only mode of transport, but would I recommend it? Well, for short trips, yes, but the 8-mile range practically holds you in a 4-mile circle from your house, since charging it takes a very long time. But if you need to go further than 4 miles, you might want to explore a similarly priced e-bike, since you can at least pedal that home when it dies instead of having to carry it home. Although it is very fun to ride around on, and it's definitely better than an electric scooter, since with a bit of practice you can off-road with it. They've dropped the price since I've bought it, but at $750, it's still pretty hard to recommend unless you live somewhere dry like me and have decent bike infrastructure or plenty of trails. Maybe the more expensive one wheels are better and I would be able to recommend them because of that, but I don't know. What is your favorite memory from the past few years of YouTube? Probably the day that the Half-Life Alyx trailer dropped. I still haven't played Half-Life 1 or 2, but there hadn't been any real game-changer VR games at that point, so as a semi-early adopter, I was pretty excited to have a VR Valve game, since I knew it would be super high quality. The game also came out only a few days before my birthday. Favorite language? Depends on what you mean by language. For a programming language, I would say Rust. Every programming language that I've used a decent amount has either had horrible package management or horrible version management. Looking at you, Python. I really enjoy being able to force myself to cover all edge cases and knowing exactly where issues might arise. Although, there are some things I still do struggle with, like if-let statements and mapping iterators, but I haven't done any research into those, so I'll usually just avoid them, unless Clippy will refactor it for me automatically. How about scripting language? PowerShell. I wrote a lot of tools and modules to automate IT stuff, and overall I think it works pretty well. And finally, what's my favorite spoken language? English. It's my native language, and it's the only common language I speak. While Tokipona is fun, I don't get to use it very often. Has anyone ever been far, has even decided to want Go do more look like? Go further, and even more decided to use. I can't read this, but it translates to, do you want a tour of North Korea? As much fun as traveling sounds like, I don't think so. Would you pull the lever? It depends on how much the windshield wiper fluid is making me hallucinate. What are you doing in life? Your mother. How are you? I'm doing pretty well, thanks for asking. And that's all the questions. Thanks again for 50,000 subscribers, unbelievable number, but that's all I've got for today. My name's DocJade. Bye-bye.